process in creating an ordinance within the city, as well as the purpose of having regulations. We're going to talk about getting some feedback from this community, hearing about your comments, hopefully being able to answer any questions, but if we can't answer those questions, we'll be able to write them down. This is a recorded meeting, so we'll be able to go back and watch all the recording, and if there's any questions that we missed, we'll be able to pick up on that. And then we will also wanted to inform the community about any next steps that we're going to be having and any the upcoming meetings that we're going to be doing too. So for this discussion, we felt it was necessary to talk about some definitions of terminology. These are some main terms that you'll probably hear. So back of the meter refers to energy systems or resources that are located on a customer's site or the customer side of the electricity meter. So you have your meter on your home. You might have a BESS in your garage. Or it could be for a commercial property where they're relying on batteries to help maintain electricity for the property. Those are your home, businesses, and other facilities. The distinction is the front of the meter systems, which are energy systems or resources that are connected directly to the utility grid before the electrical meter, and that measures a customer's consumption, such as utility company, independent power producers, or grid operators. That's PG&E. And then another important term for the conversation for tonight is thermal runaway. That is a self-reinforcing, uncontrolled increase in temperature within a system, and that often leads to damaging effects on these systems, such as fire or explosions. So this all started in 2018 when the state legislature adopted Senate Bill 100. It was signed by the governor. And really what it did was it set a new goal for the state that all retail electricity sold in California must be renewable by 2045. And so another assignment that was given to the California Public Utilities Commission was to update the Renewable Portfolio Standard, the RPS, to ensure 60% of California's electricity is renewable by 2030. A stepping stone to that 2045 goal. But there was also an assignment to create a joint policy report on SB 100 by 2021. And that was going to be done every 4 years thereafter. And really the intent behind the joint policy report was to look at all those existing policies that might be out there and figure out if there's any revisions that are necessary for the state to be able to achieve that goal by 2030 and 2045. Now, that joint agency policy report was published on March 15th of 2021, and that was a joint effort with the California Energy Commission, the California Public Utilities Commission, and California Air Resources Board. And what they did was they looked at a number of different scenarios, and they found a core scenario where really, for California, in order to be able to meet those goals of 2045, they had to do a couple of different things. They had to introduce 145 gigawatts of new utility scale capacity by 2045, and that includes 49 gigawatts of battery storage, and that's around the entire state. For your questions, I think we'll handle it at the very end. Slower? Okay. Okay. The sound is not good. Okay. Is it tons of reverb? Should I talk a little bit louder? Is this helping if I talk louder? Well, part of the reason why we have the PA system on here is because it can be picked up for the recording, and we want to make sure that those people that are on home can also hear it. So I'll just look to the media team.
We're the most important ones, the ones that showed up.
We can't understand what you're saying now. It's like you're in a barrel.
In a barrel?
Yeah.
Should we keep going? You guys are going to keep working on it? Okay. Okay. All right. So where are we? All right. So the core scenario was really the pivotal moment. It informed the entire state of the amount of resources that had to be installed within the entire state. And so that's really where the big change happened. And the Senate did one more thing that was crucial, was in June of 2022, they adopted Assembly Bill 205. And that was one of the things that they did to remove hurdles to make that happen. What it did was it offered an opt-in certification process with the California Energy Commission, where it would allow businesses or power companies to be able to introduce these sources of renewable energy. It offered a streamlined process of 270 days once it's deemed complete, and it doesn't require compliance with local regulations. This process does account for needing to have a community benefit plan with local organizations. And so this is one of the biggest, I think, timestamps where we noticed some changes occurring, where when this got adopted, we started seeing a lot of these battery energy storage systems coming in. So what we found out about battery energy storage systems is that it's really the intent why it's showing up is because the state has these clean energy goals that are driving the demand for these energy systems. These front-of-the-meter BESS facilities, what they do is they store grid energy during the daytime when solar is allowed to collect it, and then they discharge it during the nighttime when people are at home and they're consuming that energy for running their dishwashers, their TVs, their heaters in home, their air conditioning, and that's during that peak hour demand in the evening. What we found is that the whole intent behind it is really to improve grid reliability and efficiency. But there's a number of different concerns that we have heard during this process, which is there are concerns about fires with these facilities. There's concerns about that thermal runaway definition that I told you about earlier. There's concerns about those issues creating shelter-in-place orders. And then there's further contamination that's a concern. So there's another series of information that we noticed occurring directly after 2022, which is in August, that's where we started seeing these battery energy storage systems popping up. In August of 23, we were notified by the California Energy Commission that there was a proposal to install a 100 megawatt BESS project by the Vaca-Dixon substation in the county. On November 13th of last year, the California Energy Commission again notified us about another opt-in application for a Corby battery energy storage project in Solano County. And then as recent of this year, the California Energy Commission notified the City of Vacaville about Middle River Power and a BESS project that is seeking to utilize that opt-in process that circumvents local jurisdictions. Around that exact same time, the state legislature adopted SB 254. And that further added regulations to bypass local review and community input. It also made more projects eligible for the CEC opt-in process. And it also makes a broad assumption that if these energy projects are coming into different areas, that it's expected that they are going to provide a net positive and an economic benefit, and that it is the jurisdiction or the community's responsibility to prove otherwise. And so these are the locations that we are currently aware of. There's the Middle River Power. That one's in Vacaville city limits. It's off of Kilkenny Road on that green dot that you see on the map to the right of the screen. And then we also have Corby Battery Storage. That is unincorporated county. That one's being handled by Solano County. That one's also on Kilkenny Road. You may have received a public notice from the California Energy Commission concerning a community meeting. That is not this meeting. We understand that that particular meeting will be held also here at the community center, but it's probably going to be sometime in November. So what is the current regulatory framework in Vacaville? Well, BESS is currently not allowed anywhere in the city of Vacaville city limits. We don't have any BESS projects that have been approved or reviewed in Vacaville city limits. Nobody has submitted to us, and we are well aware of the growing concerns about potential impacts to sensitive receptors. And really, without any development standards, oh, my screen lost. Hold on a second. I'll refer to my notes. Really, without any development standards to safeguard the public health, safety, and welfare, that is a pretty big concern for the city. And so we recognize this concern paired with these other projects that were looking to come into Solano County and the city of Vacaville. And on May 14th of 2024, City Council put out an urgency ordinance that would prohibit new BESS. And that was a ordinance that would last for 45 days. And we returned to City Council. City Council said, yes, this is a significant concern because we don't have any regulations on how to deal with these types of facilities. And so we'll put a moratorium in place, and that moratorium ends on May 14th, 2026. So what do we do until then? Well, there's been a lot of work that's been going on with the city and Solano County. Solano County is ahead of us with regard to this particular topic. And the city and the county have been coordinating with a number of different technical working group meetings to try and develop a series of ordinance-related regulations that could help protect the public health, safety, and welfare within the city of Vacaville, but also within Solano County. Solano County, as I mentioned, is ahead of the game. Their ordinance has already gone to their planning commission. I think that it's already scheduled for a board of supervisors meeting. So for City of Vacaville, what does it look like for an ordinance? What is that process? And my screen has gone blank and does not move. Now it does. All right, so it's not every day that you build an ordinance. So this is really intended to provide informative information to the public about what that looks like. So the ordinance framework will look something like this. We'll talk about definitions. We'll list out all the definitions that we're familiar with, and we'll talk about what types of facilities are applicable. We'll introduce land use standards and siting standards, where they could be located, if they could be located, what locations. We'll talk about development standards such as setbacks, other requirements for perimeter fencing, maybe landscaping, things like that. We'll talk about what the permitting process looks like. Who do they have to go to for approval for something like that? We cover a element that's within the Assembly Bill 205 that obligates these facilities to work with local agencies or organizations to develop agreements for public benefits. So we have a section that talks about how that can be done. And then we have a section that's going to cover commissioning and decommissioning. For those of you that have been following Solano County's ordinance, this follows pretty closely to what they've done. We've been working collaboratively with them on this. So to dive a little bit deeper about what the ordinance is going to cover. Now, I will mention the ordinance is not published. We're still working on it with our city attorney's office. And that ordinance is expected to be available in the beginning of November for public review and consumption. And I'll go through some timelines and next steps on where we're heading with that. But we felt that it was going to be helpful to the conversation to talk about what each section will cover. And so in definitions, we'll talk about the purpose of having an ordinance, the applicability to the facilities, and with a greater capacity, really it's of 40 kilowatts per hour. And then we're going to define battery energy storage systems. Your land use and siting standards are going to talk about it being maybe conditionally permitted in only those zoning districts on our map. They're not going to be allowed within high or very high severity zones or the Nut Tree Airport compatibility zones around Nut Tree Airport. They're not going to be allowed in the northeast growth area until a specific plan, and there's pretty sizable buffers away from sensitive uses such as residential units or hospitals. Did I skip? There we go. Development standards are expected to cover lighting and noise, security and screening, and landscaping, while the permitting process will talk about a preliminary application process for a proposal to come in, a formal application process, requirements for a bunch of different technical studies such as hazard mitigation analysis, and the obligation for completing environmental review in accordance with the California Environmental Quality Act. Mentioned that we'll talk about public benefits and criteria. There is a tiered system that's talked about in NFPA. Some of the benefits that would be that could be optional within the ordinance describe maybe some training and emergency equipment for emergency personnel, investments in local organizations or community benefit, or contributions to city initiatives or projects that benefit the community. There's obligations for a commissioning plan, how they intend to actually get it built, as well as a decommissioning plan that once it does close, how do they fix the site and return it to its existing or previous conditions. So one of the other things that we did as part of this ordinance is we wanted to look at the suitability within the city of Vacaville. If we were to look at a minimum buffer of 300 feet away from residential uses, such as and hospitals, other sensitive uses such as nursing homes, if you were to factor in that, and then you were to also look at other developed sites or other unsuitable sites such as existing hillside areas, and then what happens if you take out the northeast growth area, because we're currently working on a specific plan, that needs to be prepared in order to be able to determine what areas are going to be developed within that area. And then we also extracted future development that we're at least aware of within the east of Leisureton growth area. And so really this is intended to paint a picture that narrows down the potential locations that could be considered, but ultimately these would be recommendations that would go before the Planning Commission as well as the City Council with consideration of public feedback as part of this process. So this is what that siting analysis looks like. This initial diagram shows our city limits in orange and the northeast growth area over in yellow. And then we did our best to map out all the residential uses and sensitive uses within the city of Vacaville and applied a 300-foot buffer around their property lines, not the buildings, but the property lines themselves. And so that automatically disqualifies all of those areas that you'll see in tan on the screen. The next area that we decided to do for the mapping was to disqualify all those areas that are already developed with existing uses or that have hillside areas. So you'll see lots of Lagoon Valley is disqualified because it's got existing development that's planned for it, but it's also a large regional park that is not eligible for it. Old Rocky and the hillside areas up north are business park areas, and then also in the Nut Tree Airport compatibility zones that go around the Nut Tree Airport. A lot of our commercial areas are ineligible, as well as open space areas that are required for conservation. We also pulled out the northeast growth area as an ineligible location, so that area has been removed. And then the last portion are those turquoise areas, which are intended to convey that we have current development applications from those landowners to develop a variety of different land uses within that area, so they wouldn't be suitable for battery energy storage systems. And really, you're left with maybe 3 potential sites, but then we haven't incorporated the fire hazard severity zone, so that might even disqualify. But the whole intent behind this is to kind of paint a picture of how many areas are disqualified due to potential standards that could be adopted within the ordinance. So, where are we going with this ordinance? Well, we are intending to publish a draft ordinance in November of this year. From that, we'll have a time period where people can comment on it, and we're going to hold a study session with the Vacaville Planning Commission where they can hear the public comments and we can relay to them public comments that we received during that public period. And then we intend to hold another study session with City Council. So there'll be plenty of time to comment on the ordinance once it's published, as well as convey your comments. We would have to also go to the Airport Land Use Commission for that ordinance. We're currently forecasting December 12th, but there's also a January date, depending on the number of comments or revisions that would be needed to that ordinance. Eventually, we hope to be before the Planning Commission for a public hearing in January, then the City Council in March. A second reading is required for an ordinance. It doesn't become effective at that first meeting. So that second meeting would be April 14th. And after 30 days, it would become effective on May 14th. So that's a map of where we hope to be. And so really, we're going to head into the public comment and feedback period. And so on this section, what I want to be able to do is re-mention that we have those sign-in sheets. If you haven't signed in, please do so, because I can get that email and I can turn it as part of a mass email distribution list to send out updates about where we're going to be going with this project. If you do wish to comment, please take a number. They have them outside in the lobby. We're going to go through a sequence of 5 to 10 numbers that we're going to call. So it'll be kind of like a DMV approach, where we'll call the first 5 numbers. You can line up to the microphone that's right here, and then once we're done, we'll move on to the next one. When your number is called, please line up. We have accommodations, so just let staff know. You can raise your hand, and we can bring a floating microphone around. We may impose time limitations. As I mentioned, we're trying to be thoughtful about everybody's time, and we want to be able to get out of here by 7:30. Just a note, we don't want to be here all night, so members of the public, you can't cede to one another. And then one last pep talk, if I might, is that just remember to collect your thoughts. This is a recording. We are live. And so what you say into the microphone will be recorded. I just want to make sure that you do collect your thoughts and you are thinking about what you do want to say. It's going to be helpful to us to hear what you have to say. This is one of the most pivotal moments in the process of being able to understand what does the community think about it? Are there things that we ought to consider as part of the ordinance before we head out to that publication period? So with that, we're going to open up to questions. Again, the project information you can visit at cityofvacaville.gov/BESS. You can find out information and updates at that website, and that's where we plan to post information about the presentation. That presentation is available online. So the microphone's right up here. Do we want to start the first 1 through 5 tickets? Sure, I'll take the one question, but go ahead.
There was a slide that had some zone abbreviations. We didn't know what they were.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah. So really, the only suitable locations that we think could be potential would be IP, which is industrial park areas, BP, business park, and then PF, public facilities. And so these BESS facilities are not going to be located on little small 1-acre sites that are probably existing well facilities. They really do require large amounts of land in order to be able to accommodate them.
Thank you.
Okay, so if you got a ticket, 1 through 5, go ahead and line up, and we'll do what we can to answer any questions. But really, we're really interested to hear what your comments are on this approach to the ordinance. Oh, is the microphone on? I'm sorry, Joanna's going to get it for you.
Hello.
There we go.
Good evening. I want to say thank you to the city for hosting this tonight and allowing us all the opportunity to participate. With respect to the ordinance, I would say first and foremost, absolutely no lithium-ion BESS technology allowed within the city limits. If we want to talk about alternative technologies to that, safer technologies that has been talked about in many of the different public forums, both at the county and local level, I would say let's consider those. But I would certainly say no to having a lithium ion. I'd also like the city to take a look at what can we do to be using our ordinances in such a way that we're a little bit more innovative and inspiring a little more entrepreneurship, maybe some public-private partnerships. A lot of times our ordinances are telling us what we can or can't do or when we can do it. But we have an opportunity here to set the city up for a possible future growth opportunity. You have an opportunity of maybe partnering with a company that says we will invest in these alternative technologies and we can put them in places and we can also derive a benefit as the city. For example, what if they could help with our electrification needs? Microgrids that we've heard about and so forth. What if we have an opportunity to say, look, we get the first right of refusal for any sort of storage that comes out of this for our particular needs. And if all else fails, maybe we draw a revenue source from this as a public-private partnership that allows us to draw more funds than just simply whatever we're going to get out of property taxes. I think by doing this, we're going to discourage a lot of this land speculation that's going on. We have these companies that are out buying up land, and then they're hoping to flash the cash and consultants to do whatever they want, whenever they want, however they want, regardless of how we feel about it. This ordinance is an opportunity for us to put the city first and foremost at the decision point of what we're going to have, where we're going to have it, and how it's going to be, and the benefits for us. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we have something that we can be proud of and that provides for the future, not only for today, but for our citizens tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, my
I
name's
can.
Rhonda, and Madrid, and I have lived here over 30 years, and I vote. And I'm hoping that the people that I have voted for will listen to me. And so the questions that I think of, I'm not that privy on all this information, but I do read and try and figure it out. For Chris and Jill, it's how do we control this lithium ion fires? It's highly flammable. It's toxic gas. It can reunite, from what I hear, hours or even days after being extinguished. And what is the standard protocols? Some towns have said the standard protocol is to let it burn out. Well, we happen to live by Highway 80, as that map showed. That whole highway might get closed down, even for an hour. Wow. And the hospital. All right, 300 feet, that's 3 football fields. Okay, well, you tell me, some of those winds that come barreling through there, it's going to blow that stuff right around where the hospitals is, where the apartments that my grandson used to live in, where there's homes that people have bought and lived in for years. So, no, I wouldn't be happy if I lived around that area, and I do live in Browns Valley. But that's one thing for Chris and Jill. And the other one was the for the city council and the mayor. Do we have sufficient regulations? Do we have adequate local ordinance to regulate and for safe battery storage? Do we have that in place? And lots of water. It's going to need lots of water to put out this fire. And so if we have this water, it could contaminate the local water supply systems. I mean, people have out in that area, they have those their own wells and what have you. They'll be contaminated for how long? Forever? I don't know this stuff. And for Albert, I understand. I was reading about the grid infrastructures. There has to be upgraded, and all this project has to require upgrades. And who pays for that? Do we have to pay for, we meaning Vacaville, an upgrade to our grid system infrastructure in order to have you guys run? And like that gentleman referred to, you said it collects the energy by day and people get to use it at night. Are these people Vacaville people? I was told no at one point. Is it Vacaville people? And so, yeah, that's the questions I have.
All
Thank
really
you.
good questions. Thank you very much. And thank you for... thank you for taking the time just before you start. There were just a couple of questions I feel like we probably might be able to answer. That initial question about do we have any regulations in place? And no, we don't. I mean, that was part of the reason why City Council said we need to put a hold on this. It's a moratorium. You can't build any BESS or submit any projects until we have a chance to develop some regulations. The question about does the community have to pay? These are projects that are not city-funded projects at all. So these are individual power companies that are trying to come in and build these projects. So it wouldn't be something that the city would enact any taxes on or anything like that. It's nothing like that. There are current regulations that do provide some kind of guidance, and that's under, is it the National Fire Protection Agency, 855? Yeah, that provides some relief about regulations on it. And we have consulted that as a reference point when we were looking at the ordinance. In fact, the ordinance does make a ton of citations to that, as well as Solano County's ordinance, because it does look at holistically. Just that 855 section looks at energy storage systems broadly, not just in your homes, but also these larger utility scale size. Go ahead, sir. Wait, go ahead, Aaron.
One thing, I just want to note, we have 23 people that wish to speak, and I don't really want to run a 2-minute timer on people because some of you might want 3 minutes, some of you might be fine with 2. But I'm just going to encourage everyone to be relatively brief just so everyone has a chance to talk. And we'll be here if you want to talk again after everyone's had their say. But thank you.
Okay, first of all, thank you all for putting on this meeting and allowing us to come up and give our input. We appreciate it. I have 2 questions before I make my statement. Number one, where did the 300-foot buffer come from?
The 300-foot buffer was a combination of working with Solano County on. They had done some work with their technical working group, and they felt that that was a pretty decent buffer away from sensitive uses that could be applied. It's somewhat defensible. What we found is that if you apply much larger buffers, like 1,000-foot buffers, that it becomes so unachievable for these types of projects that they're automatically just going to go to the California Energy Commission for that opt-in process, which takes any authority out from the city to be able to regulate these types of things. And so we're trying to meet that middle ground of it.
But that's not set in stone yet, right?
No.
Okay. And the other statement that I like to make is I think we have an obligation to make sure that Vacaville is not the next Moss Landing. I think that's a critical point right now that we need to look at. And I think the city needs to take it upon. I've heard that you say you're working with Solano County. Mm-hmm. That's great. But do we have anyone working with Moss Landing and their area down there to find out what went wrong and what's going on now? Because they have a lot of problems after the fact. So I think we really need to do a study with them from a safety standpoint, everything. And let's learn from that to make sure that we do not become the next Moss Landing. So with that, I just want to cover a few things. First, obviously, this may be obvious to a lot, but since this is being recorded and a lot of people are just now starting to take this seriously, I think the first is the lithium battery systems have a well-documented history of fires and explosions that are extremely difficult to extinguish. When they burn, they release toxic gases that harm nearby residents and first responders. These are not the kind of incidents we want near homes, schools, or hospitals. Second, agricultural land should be protected, not industrialized. Once installed concrete pads, security fencing, and transformers, that land is no longer usable for farming or consistent with our city's general plan. Third, Vacaville already has proper industrial areas, like the Lambia Industrial Park, designed for facilities like this. Placing them on farmland or near neighborhoods would violate decades of zoning and safety planning that protect our community. Fourth, our fire department simply isn't equipped for large-scale lithium fires. Moss Landing obviously was not. These incidents can burn for days and contaminate soil and water. It's unfair to place that burden on local emergency services. And finally, property values and quality of life will suffer. No homeowner wants to live next to an industrialized energy site with noise, lighting, and potential hazards. It would change the character of Vacaville for the worst. I'm not opposed to renewable energy or innovation, but these facilities must be placed in proper industrial zones, not next to homes or farmland. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Over the last 2 years, there's been a lot of discussion about BESS battery storage here in Vacaville. I think that it is time for decisions to be made that can allow our community to feel safe and at ease with regard to this topic. We have discovered that all of the systems being proposed use lithium, which is very toxic. The systems have high risk of thermal runaway. Therefore, there is no way to ensure the physical safety of our community and prevent economic loss to local people and businesses. The groups that have been proposing projects have been less than transparent. They paint an image of their system being the new and improved version that is more safe. But they are offering the same lithium batteries in the same containers, with the danger being hidden by walls and supposed pretty trees. Toxic is toxic, not safe is not safe. There are talks of other batteries that are available, but they all want to use the lithium ones. They are putting their profits as priority and don't care what happens to Vacaville. These systems don't benefit Vacaville and would have a negative impact on our community and property values. So far, the entities involved have not proven trustworthy. For these reasons and more, at minimum, BESS systems using lithium should be banned. Ideally, should be banned all BESS systems in Vacaville. There are much better uses of our limited space that benefit Vacaville and do not endanger it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, so I like watching time. So where we are right now is for 3 speakers, we had 15 minutes of time. So we've got another 45 minutes before we hope to conclude the meeting. So just be aware of what the time is. Again, think about what you're going to say, and hopefully we can get through and make sure everybody has a chance to speak. Go ahead, sir.
Hi. I just want to make sure that a few things. First of all, I saw the box back out there out by the Sino homes by Kaiser where I live, and that's not acceptable. 300 feet, the lady said 3 football fields. It's 1 football field. It's what a kid can run in 13 seconds. Yeah. And the wind can blow a lot faster than that. So 300 feet, I don't care if 1,000 feet makes it tough. I don't know how far, you can put cigarette sales and stuff from schools nowadays and marijuana sales, but I believe it's more than 300 feet. So let's talk serious about the distance of safety. And secondly, I want to make sure that if somebody builds one of these, that I understand there's some people that want to build them now that actually have experience doing this. They have a record. And I want to make sure that they're not just going to set up some shell company under their guise, you know what I'm saying, a subsidiary company that has nothing, so that as soon as this thing burns up, they just go bankrupt and walk away and go, oh, well, sorry. I don't want that to happen either. And third, as to the lithium batteries, I mean, everybody that drives an electric car drives their family around on one every day. Everybody that has the battery storage in their garage has their family sleeping above one every day. But this is a different ball game. That truly is a different ball game. But to be fair, it's kind of hard to complain about the concept when you're driving around on top of one every day with your kids and having your kids sleep above one every day. So what we just need to do is make sure that at this scale, they know what they're doing, and they have a track record, and they have the money and the insurance and a bond to prove it, just like I had to have as a general contractor for Vacaville. Thank you.
How you doing? Is this linked in any way to China?
Not that I know of. Our ordinance, no.
For the batteries, no?
Well, we're talking about an ordinance, not a specific project for tonight.
No. Okay. The next question I had on there, a lot of the battery companies are all failing or going under, or it's being pushed. It's not by the consumer. I mean, by the choice, because a lot of the people, they're not going to want the batteries because the longevity and the price of it. So I think it should be more of a consumer choice, not being pushed on it. So that's one of the things I'm concerned about.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jill Hendricks. I work for Solano County Farm Bureau, and we do not support the batteries on ag land. Once you put cement down, the land is done and we can't grow anything on it. So we don't support that. And there are, I can't even find it. And the lithium ion doesn't belong in the city limits. The county has identified more remote locations that would be much safer, that is not prime ag land, and that you can't grow anything on. And a side note, my son was actually farming the piece of property that they're wanting to put the lithium batteries on. And while he had his crop in, they were out there putting stakes in the ground. So please, no lithium batteries on Burns and Kilkenny. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Wendy Brecken. I've been in this community for, I think, 32 years. I just wanted to say real quickly, I know you guys have put a lot of work into this, a lot of thought, and I appreciate that. I want to thank you for that. The what I'm asking you to do, hopefully before the draft ordinance goes out, is to do wind studies, or maybe those have already been done in our area, where the wind's blowing, so that when a fire does happen in a lithium ion storage facility, which it will, because there's like 5 different ways to short circuit the thing and start a fire, you'll know which way the toxic plume goes. The toxics have hydrogen fluoride in them, along with other chemicals, and that one is bad enough that it was used in World War I as a chemical agent for war. Also, so looking at that map that you brought up, where there's 3 different areas where you thought it might be possible to have the lithium ion, the first one was where the Maynard site was going to be up close to 80. And as the lady said before me, that would shut down 80, most likely, if it, plus it's near a lot of sensitive receptors. So that doesn't seem appropriate for our city. And then the one at the very bottom might be close to Travis Air Force Base, and that's when, I don't know if you have to evaluate this national security issues with that, because if it's too close to the military base, they won't allow these things because of, I don't know how they do it, but remotely, I guess they can catch fire. I'm not sure.
Wendy, I can tell you that the ordinance does look at a requirement for them to produce a plume analysis, is what it's called. So to answer your question about, we are thinking about that.
Okay. And I guess I would agree with the people that say that not to use lithium ion because the proximity is sensitive receptors, and to use the non-flammable version. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mike Liz. I've been living in Vacaville for 30 years, and I'll make this kind of short. I know we're up on time a little bit, but who in the right mind would want a lithium battery storage facility in their town? I mean, Vacaville has been a quiet, relatively safe community, and now we're looking at this, staring it at our eyes. Has anybody even thought about the county or the city, how that's going to affect our insurance rates, homeowners insurance? I know just my insurance went up, almost doubled, and when I called to ask why, they said, well, you have a hill 0.8 miles from your home, and that hill can catch fire. So imagine when they double our insurance again and they tell us, oh, you have a battery facility storage in your town. I mean, is the county going to reimburse us for that? So, I mean, all this stuff has to be taken into consideration for us people here. We're all hardworking people here, and we can't afford it anymore. So I don't want to breathe it. I don't want to see fires, and I don't want to have to pay triple on my insurance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Dan, and one of the questions that just came up as I was reading your topics, if a battery company goes through the fast track process, like you said, they do not have to adhere to any of the city ordinances. So if we have all these ordinances in place, they don't need to they can bypass them, correct?
Well, that fast track opt-in process is really intended for areas where they're not allowed at all. And so part of the reason why we're approaching this path is because City Council asked us to go and study this and bring back some options. And that's what we're doing with this ordinance process. And so the opt-in process right now for those projects, it's occurring right now because there's a moratorium. It's not allowed in the city, and so they're utilizing that process. It's possible with the adoption of regulations, they might choose to work with the city, and that's really the intent behind this is how does the city be able to control these? If they are going to be located in our city limits, it would be better for a city to control them rather than They just go through the CEC process, and then we get no say at all.
Right.
I just wanted to add one point, which is that the Vacaville City Council has expressed concern about the CEC applications. And so on the October 28th agenda, there is a draft letter to the CEC pertaining to the Middle River facility. So I think Albert's been clear, the city does not have the authority to regulate these facilities that are going through the CEC process, but that doesn't mean that our council is just hands off trying to let it all happen. We're working on a strategy to at least provide that feedback based on resident concerns. And so that's something that's on the October 28th council agenda.
I see. The other thing was, these battery companies, they want to get close to the grid as they can, so they don't have to run miles of electrical wire. And thinking outside the box, we have all of these windmills that are tied to the grid out. There's hundreds of them out there. They could put the battery storages underneath those windmills, tie into the grid. They'd be out of the Vacaville. I don't know if there's any in Vacaville. It might be all in Fairfield. I'm not sure. Solano County. But we wouldn't have to worry about ag land or anything, because that stuff, they're there. Those windmills are there. And they're already tied into the grid. So, and my last question is to the chief. I'm not sure which one's the chief at this time. You retiring? Yeah. Have you put together any kind of a emergency plan, which would include what type of equipment you would need, the manpower, if one of these battery facilities was to be put in on the east side of Leisure Town? Which fire stations would be affected, and would you have the manpower to do that?
So it's not a real easy question to answer, and the reason being is we don't know what kind of project is being proposed. This is an emerging technology. The technology is changing rapidly. I can tell you that in the last few fire conferences that I have attended, this has been a big subject. So we send whenever we send our folks to conferences, we ask them to catch a couple of these sessions on battery storage systems, as well as my counterparts throughout the state and the nation. This is a big topic that we're always talking about. What I can guarantee you is before any project, so we're monitoring the situation, and each incident that happens, regardless of where it happens, whether it's in the state or other parts of the country, we're monitoring those, and we have our staff take a look at the after action reports that come out and the lessons learned from those incidents. So we'll incorporate all of that into any kind of emergency response plan that we put together, and definitely before any project comes in, we'll take a look at that and make sure that they meet all of the requirements, the regulations, and we'll do our best to work with them to make sure that they provide us and be financially responsible. So you have the last say
in this, is what you're saying.
We're going to try. We're going to have,
because if they don't meet the requirements for your first responders, emergency response, then can't go in.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Hi, my name's Jamie. So I've been here since we had our first meeting at Solano College. And we never saw so many residents come out for this. You heard the voice of the people. We slowly are, 2 years into this? Year and a half, 2 years. Mm-hmm. And here we are today. And so I want to thank everybody here for continuing to hear our voices, from here to the supervisors and where we are now. So thank you for explaining a little bit more about why we're doing this today, because I found that a little confusing for people that haven't been following this from the beginning. There's a lot of stuff that was confusing, especially when it got to the map. The map is very confusing. I was trying to think, what are you trying to say? So thank you for clarifying what the abbreviations meant, the 300 feet. So my feeling is that I think we need to reach out more to people. This is a great group that's here, but we're not touching our younger generation at all. And if they knew that this was happening, you send out surveys about art and what can be put in the city. Why aren't we getting these kind of surveys? So, and with a little more explanation. So, thank you for explaining what would happen. You don't know what's going to happen if there's a fire until you see which kind of plant. We know that that's inevitable because of the ordinances that can be bypassed now. If we're going to have them, we want them placed in a safe place for everybody. So thank you very much.
Lou Durfus, resident of Vacaville. First off, I just want to state I'm not against alternative energy. I have 17 kilowatts of solar on my house. That's like 63 panels. So I'm not against alternative energy. But none of that is lithium. Those are solar panels. And I don't have battery backup. So a lot of concerns about this project. And, you know, the vicinity is the wrong location. It is too close to I-80 and too close to Kaiser and other vital residents. When there is a fire, I won't say when there is a fire, it has the potential of shutting down the east-west corridor that runs all the way from New York to San Francisco, I-80. And I can tell you that 300-foot buffer zone is not adequate. It should be more like 1 mile. And even that might not be adequate enough. So when you're writing the ordinance, I don't know if you can write that in there, but 1 mile would be more suitable for such facilities as this because of the potential danger of the fire. There will be thermal runaway. I mean, I've just watched China aircraft. They had a lithium battery up in the storage thing, and it caught fire while mid-flight. Fortunately, they made it to the ground without the plane crashing. So this is real technology with real issues. Fire issues are the biggest issue. Better locations, Lambert Park. Why not go out to Esparto where they had the firework explosion? That ground's already contaminated. They can put it there. Yeah. You know, it was suggested the windmill park, which runs all the way from Fairfield all the way to, I'm trying to think of the name of the, past Rio Vista, but there's Collinsville. Better location, and they have, like was stated, the infrastructure's there to tie it into the grid. So we offered, our group, Keep Vacaville Safe, offered alternatives, and they balked because they had to run more wire. That's not a good answer to our request. We're looking out for the safety of the residents of Vacaville and our community, and they're worried about spending more money on wiring to tie it into the grid. You know, Sacramento should not, and I know they have been dictating what we do in the city. They've dictated on water rights, they've dictated on water treatment, you know, sewer treatment. It's ridiculous. You know, when's it going to stop? Basically, Corby Energy came to the city of Vacaville. The city of Vacaville turned them down. They went to Solano County. They turned them down. So basically, pardon my bluntness, they gave us the middle finger and went to Sacramento, to the CEC, and bypassed us. Basically said, we don't count. Our voices don't count. I want to remind everybody, we are the voters. We are the voters, and we should have a say. I know a lot of times we don't, but we should have a say. Another concern is the pollution. When these things catch fire, I think the proper procedure, they can't put them out, but there'll probably be a lot of water put on them to keep them cool and keep them from spreading. That water is going to pick up the toxins, going to be leached into the groundwater, into our well water, and affect our health. I'm on well myself, and the city of Vacaville has many wells that could be affected, along with the toxic air pollutions. Skip by this. There's no benefit to us as residents. We are taking all the risk by having this in our community. There is no benefit. This project benefits San Francisco, not us. There's no break on our power bills, nothing in the bucket for us at all. When I went to the first meeting, they claimed, well, it'll reduce brownouts in our area. Well, I doubt it. I want to just say this is the tip of the iceberg. We had Corby Energy first file, and now we have Middle River filing. If we let this happen, they're going to just be lining up at the door for other companies to put more battery storage sites in our city. And we'll become, instead of a sleepy community, we'll become the battery capital of the world.
Hey Lou, I hate to do this to you.
I know.
You're going to wrap it up?
Yeah, I'm going to wrap it up.
Thank you.
Anyway, I just want to go down on the record. I'm not opposed to alternative energy, but lithium battery I'm opposed to. If they want to put some other safer batteries types in, we can look at that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Kara. We hear from people who've been here 30 years. I've been here 4 years, so I have a young family. I have little kids. We live in Brighton Landing, which is southeast of a leisure town, which I know is very, very near to one of the sites that's proposed for the facility. So I'm speaking as someone mentioned, where's the younger generation in this? That's us. That's everyone in my neighborhood with small kids who would be impacted by this. How is this impacting our home prices? If we're trying to attract young families to Vacaville to continue to build the economic strength and to continue to grow Vacaville beyond the older generation, how are things like this going to impact that? And why would people, want to pay the prices that we're paying for these new homes, to live next to this with these kinds of risks? So I know, I'm just looking at my notes, Moss Landing has been already brought up, but I know Carlsbad already got this declined, so their community was able to do that. And so I'm hoping that these conversations and the voice from this community is going to weigh in that favor to be able to vote no on this ordinance. And then along with all the other fire hazards that were already mentioned, I know there would be a shelter-in-place ordinance or shelter-in-place. So we would be stuck inside. How is that impacting kids in school? How is that impacting evacuations? As the east of Leisure Town developments, they're going to build more homes, thousands more homes. And so how are we attracting new families with young kids if this is in that general area? And I know, Lou mentioned this is not benefiting Vacaville. So how is this a community first approach? How are we taking care of our residents over any kind of revenue this may generate or, big corporation? And I work for a big corporation. So, I can see both sides of this, but it's not directly impacting our community. And so this is going to have a negative, detrimental impact on people. My husband was active duty military, so we're still here after his active duty commitment. You're going to have families who may enjoy Northern California who want to stay, who are going to say, absolutely not, I'm not buying a house in Vacaville. And so we're losing that future growth because of this. And, this is benefiting San Francisco. So like Lou mentioned, we're taking on all the risk with absolutely none of the benefit. And then, lithium ion batteries I know that this is like the current technology, but there are technologies that are emerging with sodium ion energy. So the future of renewable energy is quickly changing and developing. And I just think that, if we say yes to this plant this facility, how is the technology going to outpace this development? And so are we talking about changing the footprint of what's already exists? Is it another facility? Like, when is the limit on what continues to be developed in Vacaville once this, gets some legs and is in motion? So I just ask that everyone considers that, mostly on the impacts of, let's think past the people who have been here for 30 years. I would like to be one of the people who calls Vacaville my home for a long time, but if things like this pass, we absolutely would sell our home and move, because I'm not going to have my kids grow up here when projects like this are approved and no consideration for the community is taken. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we start, just want to see a show of hands of who still plans to speak. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay.
I promise it'll be a little quick.
19 minutes.
All right. Thank you for taking time tonight to be away from your family and your evening. My name is Chris Whitaker. I'm with Keep Vacaville Safe, also Vacaville resident. I think, one of the things as far as, well, I should probably take a step back and say some few of you know about my feelings about the pace of development here in the area, but that's not what tonight is about. Tonight is about the ordinance. I am in favor of this ordinance, and I think if anything that we've learned, being part of the process that the county's working on, and then now seeing Vacaville do this, is that we don't necessarily want to be seen as the county or the city of no. And I think, through that process, some thoughts that have come out to me, and most everybody here tonight has already brought these up, would be to have less harmful types, so no lithium ion, not putting it on an industrial zoned area, not using ag land at all, especially prime ag land, ensuring that there's a local benefit. You talked about the assumption of a net positive. I would want that to be a local benefit, not for a benefit somewhere else, and then assume that risk. The last piece of that is on SB 254. I'd really love to see some better cooperation with the CEC, as probably with everybody, because something like this comes along and it basically overrules any autonomy that we have. So thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sarah, and I want to thank the staff for putting together this really great presentation and all the background leading up to the ordinance process and all the work that goes into that. So thank you so much. And I believe the city is on the right track. And I think that some of the things that were put in the presentation, I feel a little nervous about, to be honest. Putting lithium-ion battery storage in public facilities or industrial zones or battery or business park areas in our city, they're really not remote locations, none of them. And so the 300-foot setback is appropriate for the county because there's wide open land there. There's not a lot of housing developments. There's not businesses that would be impacted economically if there was an incident. But in the city limits, 300 feet doesn't seem far enough. And just for reference, the Menard Energy project that was proposed and voted down by City Council was 400 and something feet away from a house, and it was still voted down. So I would like to see further setbacks for those kind of facilities. And just to point out the NFPA 855, the fire code standards that are required for those facilities, they don't prevent thermal runaway from happening. They're just a standard. These facilities still have incidents of thermal runaway, and they still impact communities. I do agree with having an energy benefit to the city. I think that we have an opportunity to take advantage of that if we're going to permit those kind of facilities here. I would like to see something that helps our city directly, and so maybe that could be built into the community benefit portion. And I do want to bring up the issue of noise, because the facilities do have loud noise, and that's something that some municipalities don't recognize, but they have a lot of fans that create a large amount of noise. So putting them near businesses and homes would not make sense just for the noise. Also, I would like to see pre-construction soil and air testing as a baseline, so that if there is an incident of thermal runaway, we can come back and tell the developer they've contaminated our ground. And I think there should also be a limit of the quantity of battery energy storage systems that we're going to permit. I know that the areas that are identified is few, but imagine them all taken up with multiple developments, and then it's going to be a bigger disaster if they all have fires all the time. So I'd like to see a limit on those. Also, I'd like the city to investigate putting an environmental justice component of the CEQA process, just so that the environmental justice zones that have been identified in Vacaville are not further burdened by additional impacts. And then just on another note, I think that Vacaville has a really good opportunity to take advantage of the ordinance and do something that's right for the people. And I know that a lot of residents are concerned about thermal runaway fires and the impacts from these facilities, and I feel like the city has been feeling the pressure to create an ordinance that will allow them here. But I just want to say that we don't have to. We don't have to allow them here. There is a state loophole, yes. They can pursue that if they choose. It is stricter than most local municipalities' process. So the CEC, they're experts. They're going to be going over their applications a lot more strict than local jurisdictions will. And any developer will tell you that they would much rather go through the local process instead. One way we can still have some control is if we have an ordinance that allows for safer technologies and not allow lithium. So we do have a pathway for these facilities to exist in our city without the risks. And that would be a compromise that we can show the CEC we are able to do these projects safely, and they can be in our community, but we will not tolerate the ones that are risky. And so I really hope that you'll consider that as part of the ordinance process. Thanks.
Hi, good evening. You can time me 30 seconds. I do have 2 questions as a millennial, maybe the only other millennial in the room. I do want to say something real quick. To the elders, I want to thank you because we're raising families. And a lot of our generation is not aware and doesn't have the time to come to these meetings, so you're fighting for us too. And so I want to thank you for that. But 2, I have 2 questions. Can we regulate the type of batteries used in this ordinance? Because I know we're playing chess here. And can we regulate and approve projects that only benefit Vacaville and not San Francisco? I don't know if you can give me, but I don't know if you can answer that now, but just something to think about.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
That's something to think about for sure.
Hi, good evening. My name is Dee Cole, a resident of Vacaville, and actually these BESS projects are near and dear to my heart because the current Corby project, which I know this is not about tonight, is right across the street from my house. I'm the Kilkenny resident right across the street, so big deal for me. So I'm not looking out just for my safety, but obviously my concern is for the city that I've grown up in and loved. So I appreciate the city of Vacaville and all their work to put this ordinance in, and I really do hope you take into consideration everything that's been said tonight. I'm not going to repeat everything because you don't want to hear it and we're out of time. But number one, if we could just no lithium ion, nothing flammable, and also I agree, let it be a benefit to our city. Let it be power that's going to benefit us, not San Francisco or Marin or wherever else, and we take the responsibility or the the risk. So thank you very much for everything.
Mike Keller. I live on Kilkenny. Dee's my neighbor. I want to echo a lot of the things that have already been said, but I'd like to challenge your thinking on the 300-foot level, okay? Pretend it's your house, and you're allowing through a land use policy, you're allowing someone to build one of these facilities within 300 feet of your house. And at some point, you have to sell your house. Who's going to want to buy it? Yep. Nobody. 1,000 feet wouldn't be enough as far as I'm concerned, okay? The other major thing, which you've already heard, is nothing should be allowed that's capable of a thermal runaway situation, which would mean lithium ion for one. I think that should be part of the ordinance. So I'd be brief, and I am. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight, taking the time away from your regular schedule. We really do appreciate it because this is an important part of this process. I will draw your attention to the screen. There is a QR code up there. So that is a way for you to be able to still continue to submit questions. If you think of anything afterward, just take a picture of it, and you'll be able to scan it later. It'll pop up on your phone, and you'll be able to go to the city's website and submit more questions. This process is not done. We still have a lot more work to do. We have a couple of study sessions, so stay tuned for that. We do publish staff reports on those things, and we do hold public hearings. So again, thank you, everybody, for showing up and respecting the time. We appreciate it. Thank you.